Good evening and welcome to Words of Wisdom. My name is Louisa Eiler and I am your host. This podcast and this video recording is born out of a need to connect with people at home during this COVID-19 pandemic. We realize that there are just people sitting at home and wondering, how do I manage my emotions, the things that are happening in my life, and how do I connect to people in a real way? And so this all started because I'm a therapist and I'm a mom and I'm a college professor, and I thought that there was a need to connect with people on a larger level. So I outreached to a good friend of mine, Tamra Simmons, who I know has experience with this, having just come off of surviving R. Kelly. And so I invited Tamra Simmons, Dr. Sandra Hunter, who is a licensed certified Christian counselor, and there is Gazim Gashi, and he is an influencer, Harvard speaker, entrepreneur. Also Shatonna Nelson, who knows a lot about survival and really connecting with people on emotional and personal levels. She's a celebrity publicist. And also Dr. Jared Young, who is a certified advanced drug and alcohol counselor and a PsyD. So we hope that the information we provide to you today as we share our stories and then ultimately invite others into the discussion can benefit you in some way that will help you really own this time and reflect on yourself and what you can do to take steps to improve your circumstances during these times and going forward. Because one thing's certain, this pandemic will end, but mental health awareness will continue, and we just are there with you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tamra.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Louisa. Yes, I thought it was very important because I was noticing that there were people that were posting just about the things that they were going through ever since the coronavirus started and the pandemic. And it was just progressively getting worse and worse, I think, because there's so much time in the day and you're not working and you're sitting at home. And so my concern was with those that are already depressed and suffer from anxiety. What does this do for them? What does this do to them? And are they able to, receive some type of therapy? Not everyone is able to afford a therapist. And even if so, you can't have that face to face. So I was wondering if therapists were actually, were they taking phone calls, or how are they helping, with others mental health issues that already have mental health. So I thank you guys for participating. I know this is going to be hopefully a weekly thing, because I believe that it's very important for not only myself, but I was saying, other people and peers. So the first person I thought of was Shatonna Nelson, who is out of Houston, Texas. She's a great friend of mine. She's my little savior, but y'all can't have her. I can only have her. But she's amazing. And I'm not everyone has a Shatonna in their life that they can just text or call, because she is a therapist for me too. And she's had so much traumatic experience, and I would love for her to share her story and everything and how she survived. We all have crises in our lives and pandemics in our lives, and she's a true survivor. So I'll turn it over to Shatonna so she can tell us a little bit more about herself.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be on this call. So for me, I think I've been through a lot. I have a unique experience, starting as early as 11 years old. So just a little bit about that, not to get into any too much details. I was raped brutally, left in a ditch to die. And that 11-year-old girl lived a long time. I was an adult, and I was still making decisions as that 11-year-old girl. And thinking back to that time, the only person I truly felt like I had was my brother, who was truly my first cousin. And then at about 25, he died in a car accident. And I've experienced a lot of situations like that. Honestly, I truly have. I've lost friends and different people. And I think everybody was like, "You're so strong. You're so amazing. Oh my God, you're such a survivor." And that's good, but no one tells you how to re-enter life after you went through an experience. So for me, at that point, I needed to get balance and control. And that's a very small part of what I've been through in my life. So I had to get to a point, and I was like, well, how do I control my life? Because it looks like I'm high functioning, but when you turn off the lights at night, it's just me, and I'm not making it. And at this rate, I'm not sure I'm going to survive. And I have family and people who are dependent on me, and they don't realize I'm not okay. So I had to get to a point where I wanted total wellness in my life, but I had to understand that there were multiple dimensions. We have financial, occupation, mental health, all these different things that go in to create wellness within us. So at that point, I had to figure out what was the best balance in those 8 dimensions of my life and to get control. And one of those ways I did so was I got professional help. So I would really like to hear from you, Dr. Young, because I feel like as much as I can tell you about my story and me getting up, I think a really big part of that was knowing in order to get balance and control that I needed help. I needed to go and talk to someone.
Well, my name's Dr. Jared Young, and I have my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I have an outpatient practice in Canfield, Pennsylvania. And so I think what you're describing is a lot of traumatic events and some loss and some grief, and I think that's kind of similar to what we're experiencing today. And we're losing a lot of different things. A lot of people are experiencing loss of being able to attend weddings and even funerals, being able to attend graduation is in the next couple of weeks. And so how do we deal with loss, and how do we deal with grieving some of these losses that we have in our life? And so I think this is a really important time for us to come together today and talk about some of these really important issues.
One of the other professionals that we have on the line is Dr. Sandra Hunter. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Sandra Hunter to just sort of introduce herself and kind of share with us what she does in her day-to-day practice, and then also to kind of touch on really, how do you find that balance in your life in these difficult times? So welcome, Dr. Hunter.
Louisa. My name is Dr. Sandra Hunter. I'm a licensed clinical Christian counselor, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Finding ourselves shifting and really trying to figure out what's going on. And so what I found is I've seen clients recently, and I talked to those who had allowed themselves to go to a really low place, a down place, if you will. I have one client, for example, he tells me that all he wants to do is sleep. He doesn't want to listen to anything, and he just wants to sleep throughout the day because he doesn't want to deal with this. And then on the other hand, I have clients who need to get out, and they're inside the house and they're all over the place. And so one lady says, if I don't get out of this house, I'm going to climb these walls. And so at this time, it's how do you bring the person back to a place where they're able to just accept where we're at. No one likes it. It's a very uncomfortable place. But to be able to accept it and then understand, what can I do to bring this balance back in my life? One of the things that's very important is that we must first take a deep breath. We take a deep breath, understanding that we're all in this together. This is one time in history that every single person at some point, we're going through similar things. And so taking that deep breath and then focus on what's important. What can you control? The one thing is yourself, but focus on the things that you have in front of you right now. And then it's important to create a support system during this time. Because then the most important thing of it all in this balanced state is self-care. Loving yourself through this, through the unknown. Loving yourself that you are able to handle every situation that will come your way. Because as we know, we're centered. When we're balanced, we're centered. And no matter what comes our way, we are able to meet the challenge. So the other thing too, in bringing the balance back, is staying in this place of gratitude. Even though we do not know what's going to happen, but knowing that, you know what, I'm grateful that I have my family here. Or I'm grateful that even though I'm not working, there are ways, there are programs that I will get support and help that I need, as well as other things that we can do. But just understanding to be steady, to know that we can handle this because we are all in this together.
When we think of the things that Dr. Hunter is telling us, and really how to find that balance and to take control, we have to remember that the only thing that we really do have control over is the control of ourselves. And like Dr. Hunter mentioned, people, sometimes just sleeping the day away because they don't know what to do. That sort of brings me to the next really powerful speaker that I wanted to kind of share with you tonight. Someone who knows a lot about intentions. And our next presenter is a Harvard speaker and has multiple businesses that he knows a lot about. How do you start something from the ground up and just take control in your own life to manage your own endeavors? So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hey everyone, my name is Gazim Gashi, and first of all, I just want to say that everyone, hearing your stories is very inspiring, so thank you guys for sharing it. Obviously, I am a war refugee from Kosovo, so I've had a very strong connection when I meet people with the same background, because being a war refugee from Kosovo, we came to Sweden with my family, so I grew up in south of Sweden and was really young, but because of my parents always telling me about that journey that they experienced, I've been able to get a lot of strength through that, and especially knowing a lot about values and knowing about how great support system is. Just I've always had a dream of having an impact on other people who wants to be in entertainment education. So when I was 16, I started a YouTube channel to find young talent and to introduce them to the real industry. And through that, I was able to develop and launch my own first music school in Sweden. That became 3. And then through that, I was able to come to the US. So now last year, we just launched one music school here in Los Angeles. And through that, it's been nice because I'm meeting so many great talent, but a lot of people are dealing with what exactly we are talking about. So I think for me, it's nice that I can be out there, talk with people and really educate them about the real stuff that's happening out there and build bridges with them so they can get hope and they can get excitement. Because for example, the entertainment industry has a really dark side. So I feel very fortunate to be on that side where I can really talk to the students and kind of almost prepare them of what that world is, so they have the tools to be able to go through that and not be broken. So I definitely like finding talent, but educating them and making sure that they are as strong as possible mentally when they go into the entertainment industry, because the entertainment industry is insane.
It's insane. Insane.
Worse than people think. So I think that's why I'm glad that I am now just working, with kids around the US. I'm also working with the Grammys Music Education, and with them we are kind of talking to a lot of public schools around the US and bringing up the mental healthness and wellness and everything. But another reason why it's so close to my heart is because 5 years ago, I actually lost my cousin due mental illness. So I know how that feels, and it's crazy because every year, because it happened in May 2015, so every year until now, I still expect a call. I still expect, so it's become like a trauma, where I'm like, it kind of relive everything every year for like 2-3 weeks before the actual date.
Yeah, all of this stuff is so real. And I think that one of the things that lends itself to kind of a good discussion is that right now we're all sort of students of the world. We're all at ground zero kind of together, figuring out where do we go from here. And when we think of that, one thing uniquely comes to mind when we sort of think about the entertainment industry versus the ordinary people just at home who are just, trying to do the best they can to take care of their families is there's this term that we hear in pop culture called FOMO, the fear of missing out. Well, right now, all of our FOMO issues have been resolved because now we're in this together, and we're all starting from a new normal and a new position in the world, which sort of level sets us to that everybody has their own opportunity to sort of, take a deeper look at themselves and really think about what kind of changes can we make in our own self that's going to help us get to whatever is going to be coming next. And so
before Dr. Young starts, I just want to thank everyone that's on here. I can see people are coming in. They may have questions because I tweeted and posted that if you have questions, there's doctors and experts on the line. So if you have questions, you can put it in the chat, or you can send it in a private message in the chat, or everyone can see it. So if you have questions, just put it in the chat and then we'll answer the questions. I'll filter them throughout the session. Okay, Dr. Young, it's your turn.
All right, great. I was thinking about this before we got all together tonight, and I have a couple ideas, a couple things I've jotted down as maybe a reference point or a way to kind of get started. And one of the things I was considering was what we have control and what we don't have control about. And so, like, if you think about this circle, and in the circle is what I have control with, and outside of this circle is what I don't have control over. And so I was thinking about some things that we have control over in life, and some things within my control are building resilience, following the latest information and advice, focusing on what's important to me. We've already talked about some things tonight about what's important to me, like friends and family and others. And how am I gonna find information? Like, am I gonna find information on watching the news, like Dateline and CNN and Fox, or am I gonna look at the CDC and other information that's a little bit more relevant for myself? Within my control is my routine, possibly doing a relaxation exercise, mindfulness. That's something that we might get involved in a little bit later, talking about what are some skills that we can do for mindfulness, relaxation, cultivating connections. I know a lot of times, like in social isolation, many of our face-to-face connections have been disconnected, and how do we reconnect with other people? Either, like tonight, this is a great form using Zoom. A lot of people I've talked to have used Zoom for Easter and connecting with people where they've had 15, 20 people on Zoom, and they've broken out into different chat rooms in Zoom to have a different experience, but I think a kind of a valuable experience. Eating well, exercising, seeking and offering support, and activism. So those are some things that are within my control. Outside of my control are other people's decisions, other people's health, the news, schools opening, closing, the state of our healthcare system, holidays being canceled, traffic, the weather. These are some things that are outside of my control. And I think it's important to think about. Sometimes we might think, there's a lot of things that are outside of my control, but what do we have that's within our control? Some things that are that we're able to influence, and I think that this creates some hope, and I think it decreases some of our uncertainty, some of the unknown, when we focus on some of the things that we do have control over. Part of our bubble, what's within our bubble and what's outside of our bubble. And so what do we have that we can control within that bubble in our life? And so Louisa said fear of missing out. Like, I think that's a real thing, right, for a lot of people. And so, like, sometimes we might think that that's outside of our bubble, but inside our bubble, there might be a lot of things that we can still find joy out of and find satisfaction out of. And so I think part of this is so, psychologically, like, what are some of my thoughts? What are some of my inner thoughts that I'm having? And are they true or are they not true? And coming up with something that's a little bit more beneficial, that's within that bubble.
Good advice. And I think that's something that all of us at home should really listen to, because there are so many things that people can't control, and you really have your own internal ability to control yourself. And that ability to control yourself, believe it or not, it really begins with the thoughts. And so I guess I really didn't share about me. I am a licensed social worker. I'm a college professor. My sister committed suicide. I've been the victim of domestic violence. I've been raped. I have a biracial son with autism. The list goes on. But the point is, I'm a survivor, and it's okay to have new beginnings. And one of the things that I had to learn within my own self is that when I really started to have the capability and the understanding that I had this ability to control my thoughts and decide that if a random thought popped into my head at, say, 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon or 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening, when that thought came in to my head, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Or, oh my gosh, it sucks that this happened to me. When I'm able to take that thought and say, okay, thought, I'm going to either fester on you and let you destroy what's left of my evening and destroy my tomorrow, or I'm going to say, okay, I'm aware that you're there, thought, but I'm going to choose not to act on you. Because in the pattern of what happens in anyone's thought progressions and in their life, every action that you do begins with an impulse. That impulse turns into a thought, and then that thought gets conceptualized into a word. So for example, you think you're missing out on something, so you get frightened, or you think you might not have the money to pay the rent, so you get frustrated. Whatever that thought and impulse is, then it turns into an action. So if you're afraid of something, you might start get anxious and rushing, and how you complete the next couple of actions based on whatever word you develop from the thought, it's going to change the next sequence of interactions. So the moral of the story is, to sum it up quickly, is that you have to watch your thoughts, because your thoughts become your words. Your words then become your actions. The actions that you repeatedly do become your habits. The habits become part of your character, and that character turns into your destiny. So that one thought that you had that turned into the door that slammed, or the unkind word that you said to someone, or the grocery store clerk that you were angry at because they gave you a few less cents than possible, just everything that you do perpetuates itself. So watch your thoughts and determine what you have control over. And so I think someone on this call, Shatonna, maybe can kind of speak to, how do you do that? Obviously, you've made great strides in your life since so many of the unfortunate circumstances that happened to you. And what advice would you have for someone, to really start to be able to control those thoughts that get inside you and try to, madden you?
So for me, I would go back. Let's talk about the beginning of when you go through anything, or when you're going through anything. The truth is, the thoughts don't matter if you're not admitting that you're going through something. Nobody can truly help a person who's never said, I'm going through it. If your lights are going off and you have a support system that you haven't verbalized that to, well, your lights aren't going to get paid. If you've been raped and you're dealing with that trauma and you've never been able to open up and tell anyone, well, the thoughts aren't going to matter. So this is the thing that I've learned about life. So without fear, we do foolish things. Without courage, we never take the steps to do anything. You have to find a balance between the both of those. It is okay to be afraid. People tell you that you're not supposed to be scared. You have to be strong or swift or get over it. Or the truth is, the only thing you really have to do through most circumstances is endure. So, it's okay to be scared. And it's okay to have courage. You just have to balance those two things. So if I had any advice for anyone who's going through anything, it would be that nobody's messed up so bad that there isn't redemption. And, nobody is so mighty that they'll never fall. And if you can remember that, then in your hardest moments and everything that you go through, and you remember that, you realize that we're all really on an even playing field, no matter how rich, no matter how pretty, no matter how smart, no matter how many kids or what. You can always redeem yourself, and you're never so high that you won't fall. I think if people can adapt that and understand I can be scared and courageous at the same time, those two can coexist together if I balance them the right way, well, then when a thought comes of fear, you courageously jump right over that. And when your courage has went too far and you're just like, you're pumping on adrenaline and I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. Well, fear is a little thing that tugs at you and says, maybe, but maybe you should call your best friend Tamra, or, maybe you should call your mom, or you know how you get. Sometimes you're a little, so maybe you need to call someone who's most balanced. So if I had any advice, it would be to those two things. Know that nobody has messed up so bad that they can't be redeemed. Nobody is so high that they'll never fall in life. And to understand how to balance courage and also balance fear.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I call that the Cinderella model. And that may seem silly to even hear me say that, but one of the things that I think is really powerful in this time is to have analogies that you can relate to, because sometimes people might forget what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And the Cinderella model is that in all sorts of unfortunate circumstances, that it's most important to have courage and to be kind, as Dr. Hunter suggested, that we really adopt this attitude of gratitude despite our circumstances. And someone who recently talked about that also is Brene Brown. Brene Brown always talks about how that whatever the lesson is, that we have to start with our ability to be grateful. And so when we think about where we are right now in the world, we really have to be grateful, because as a therapist for many years and being a college professor, one of the most foremost excuses I hear from people about why they don't do something they said they were going to do is that I don't have time. Well, guess what? We have time now. We have lots of time. And let me tell you, you may be complaining that you're stuck at home and that you're in quarantine and you can't go to work and you can't do this. But if at the end of this quarantine, all you have to show for yourself is that you watched 100 episodes of The Tiger King or whatever other popular show is on TV, then you're really going to have a different set of circumstances to be dealing with, because this is your time to look inward, to make those lists of all the things you always wanted to do. Whether it's clean out that closet, or whether it's take better care of your health and fitness, or whether it's, contact your long lost relatives that you haven't seen in a long time. There's just so many things that you can do right now. So Dr. Hunter, maybe you could speak just a little bit about, what are some of the first steps you take into sort of taking control and starting over?
How do you begin again? I think, first of all, I would go inside. Go inside and ask yourself, what is important? What is important to me at this time in my life? Everyone has goals, aspirations, desires that they've thought about or wanted to do. So taking a baby step in just taking a step back, going inside and asking yourself, more importantly, what am I passionate about? What is something that I can change about myself? Or what is something that I can do to help other people? And so this is a time, really, while we have this quarantine time, she mentioned, Lisa, this is a time for all of us to go inside and ask ourselves, what can we do to make ourselves better, to be able to help others, to be able to grow, and to also be able to let things go, things that held us down, things that held us back. And we get to decide that. We get to make that choice of how we want to move forward after this is over with. So you start with those baby steps. And I like to tell everyone, before you do anything, just breathe. Just be present with the moment. And when you do that, you begin to go inside and you're able to have more clarity of what it is that you want to do, and start by taking baby steps. That's what I would recommend.
So I had to start over I lived in Tennessee, and I had my, I think at the time my son was like 1, my daughter was, I'm not gonna tell y'all my age, but anyways, my daughter's she was 10. They're 10 years apart, so something like that, 9 or 10. And I was married, and I was in Tennessee. That's where I'm from. And there came a point to where I had to start over too, because I was getting divorced, and this is when I was getting ready to start my company. So I had my own little like pandemic and crisis, and I had to rely on who I was and who I knew I was outside of like my marriage, outside of the world. I had to go through that whole like quarantine. I think I was prepared for COVID, I guess, back then, like 7 years ago. And so I moved to Atlanta. I had no family here, still don't have family here, but I had no family here, and I had to just, like I said, hey, I think Atlanta is the place that I want to be in, and that's where I'm going to start my business. That's where I'm getting the most traffic. And I'm like, I'm just going to start over with like a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old. Like, I'm crazy. I just started thinking I was like crazy for doing it, but I just jumped out there because I felt that that was the right time for me to do it. And I feel like during this time, even in COVID, I'm like, okay, we're all on this Zoom, so we're all healthy, we're all safe. So we have so much, like Dr. Hunter was saying, like gratitude. We have so much to be thankful for. I could sit around, I could be like, man, I could be on set working 10 to 12 hours. I want to make money, but at the same time, I'm like, woo, I ain't got to be on set for 10 to 12 hours. But after a while, it does get to you, you know? So I know you guys can speak to that, but I just wanted to share that even like through this whole entire crisis, we go through little crises in our life. So I look at it like, I got through that divorce. I got through that relationship. I can get through this. Like, COVID is like a relationship. We about to break up in a minute. That's how you have to look at it sometimes.
That I wanted to add is, if you can break up this longer term question mark of how long is this going to last into things that you can control and that are more manageable, that is going to be a key element to getting through this. And what that means is, instead of looking at this as how many months is this going to last, how many weeks, how many more days, is set yourself a micro step calendar. Meaning right now, the one thing you're certain of it is that it's at least going to be till Friday. And then next week, it's going to at least be till the next Friday. So if you can start taking it maybe week by week, just in terms of how long you have to mentally prepare to get yourself through, that's a really good idea. Now, for some of you who say that, oh my gosh, a week is too long, in 7 days, I'm already at my wit's end, then you have to take it day by day. And some of the models that we use in the recovery model, or for any of you who've ever done a 12-step program, sometimes it's hour by hour. And sometimes it's minute by minute. And when we think about a few minutes ago, when I talked about how it's impulse by impulse and thought by thought, sometimes it's second by second. So what you have to do is to take it in stride and really, first of all, break it into a smaller component a week. And then within that week, manage each day. And within each day, manage each hour. One of the things you can do every day that I think helps for anyone, regardless of how old you are, whether you're a 5-year-old kindergarten student, trying to get virtually taught by your teacher, or whether you're grandma wondering when your daughter's going to bring her food grocery run for the week. Think about breaking your day up into the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, and try to think of one thing you need to do during each one of those blocks of time. And that way you'll at least have some sense of what's coming next in that 24-hour period. And that's something that everyone can do, because then it's not just, oh my God, it's 8 o'clock at night and I've laid on the couch all day, because that's what you want to avoid. So start setting just like 1 or 2, 3 if you're lucky, goals for yourself. And I think that all of us, even those of us on this call and the ones that are listening in, if the one goal is, let's just get ready for the day, meaning get up and get dressed, comb your hair, change your underwear, take a shower, all those things, right?
Take a shower before this. Can y'all smell me?
So I think that that's really important. So Kazim, maybe you can talk about that, and you can talk about, how do you motivate people, to kind of get stuff done?
Yeah,
also, Kazim is great for talking about like entrepreneurship. Like sometimes I think going through crisis, like it stirs up something in us that like you wouldn't leave your 9 to 5 any other way. So, I don't know who believes in God or whatever you believe in, but maybe this is the way, to get you away from that normal routine. And I know Kazim could talk about that too.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something, because Dr. Hunter said something that really touched me. She said that, when you start over, you have to ask yourself what's important for you. And it just somehow made me think about when I moved to LA, Los Angeles. I was 21, and I was going to attend this music school that I don't want to name because I don't want to like put them in a bad spot. But I did not like that school at all. I thought, you know, I remember I read about it in Sweden. I was like, oh, this is the dream school. But when I came to Los Angeles, it was not. So I told myself that I have to start over. But for me, what was important is that I want to be able to be a part of a music education platform that is reflecting the real industry and that introduces the next generation while we talk about, you know, Me Too movements, everything that's happened lately for the last couple of years, and bringing that to the platforms and really pushing that through to the students so they do better. Because I believe, you know, the music industry and the entertainment industry will be better. And hopefully, you know, what I do, what all of us do can make that be better. But what I want to say is that, so I went back to Sweden and I was like, what's important for me? What was important for me, and why I'm telling this is as well is because I feel like this also answers what Tamra just said, because as an entrepreneur, you have to always focus on winning and competing with yourself. And not, because I remember I saw this quote that has always stuck with me, which is winners focus on winning and losers focus on winners. So for me, it's always important about winning for myself and competing for myself. So I moved back when I was in Sweden, 21, moved back to Los Angeles when I was 23, didn't work out, moved back to Sweden again, and started doing what I was doing with the music education platform. And I just remember when I was 21, I came here, was going to attend a music school. It was not what I wanted it to be. So I went back to Sweden multiple times, and now I'm back, which is like 7 or 8 years apart. And now I have that music school here in Los Angeles that I believe is the right one for the younger generation, which also made me be the first ever Swedish guy and Albanian to do that in the US. So for me, I always think about that, because when I came here, I was wanting to go to this music school. It was not for me, and it was just more, it was really good PR, but it was, you know, it was just not what, Shatonna, I see. But it was just not what I wanted the school to be. So for me, just doing that journey of, you know, being in Los Angeles, just realizing it was not for me, but then going back to Sweden, creating something in Sweden and bringing that back to the US. And then now I have students that like, I don't know if I can name drop, but I don't know if I should do it. But, you know, we work with some of the biggest people in the industry. Like we work with
Name drop.
Yeah, we work with Dua right now. Dua Lipa, through her foundation, is sending off students to the Institute. We have people from Quincy Jones Productions who wants to sign some of our students. We have Warner, Universal, Sony Music. Everyone is, you know, backing this platform where I really believe the next generation is going to get introduced, but they are also going to do better in a lot of the issues that has happened lately, because we really bring them up. So for me, it's nice just to be able to go through that. Then, you know, I've always done, I've done a TV show with Disney Channel in UK, where we really worked around all of these questions. So for me, I just try to always, you know, this Hollywood almost fake thing where everything is perfect, that's not life. So I try to stay away from that as much as possible and really bring, you know, real, you know, live issues.
Question is, how important is it to calm your mind and the outside noise?
The question about calming your mind is really critical. And when we think about that, something that Gazim just stated was really closely tied to that. He talked about the different things that winners versus losers thinking about. What I want everyone to understand is that there's a mentality that we have to make a shift from. You only win any game when you get points on the board, and that is the position of offense. And so many times in our world, we become focused on defending ourselves and, we put up a front and we can't wait to go out in the world and have an interaction and, banter down or outwit somebody or, be willing to defend our position. Well, right now we're all in neutral position. And the only way to win is not to sit at home and complain about all the things you can't do, because you'll never get points on the board by focusing on the things you can't do. It all goes back also to what Dr. Young said about control and what Dr. Hunter said about control. The things you can control are what you do with this time. If you don't know what to do, then that's a pretty good sign that, like the books on my shelf back there, you got to increase your knowledge base, because if you're stuck at home and you don't know what to do, it means you need more information. Maybe it's information about yourself. Maybe it's a career inventory that might be for free that you can do an assessment, and we'll give you as much resources as we can. And then, so the question was, during this time, what can you do to sort of calm your mind when there's these internal noises and voices telling us, different thoughts and things like that? So I'll turn it over to Dr. Hunter.
Well, some of the things that you can do to calm your mind. About 5 years ago, I met someone, and she's Buddhist, and she taught me meditation. And so at first it was really hard to stay focused on how do I keep my mind quiet when chaos is going on. And so I would tell anyone to try meditation. And again, with everything is baby steps. It's just sometimes just listening to music and allowing your mind just to be silent. And so no matter what's going on around you, is allowing that silence to come in and to even tell yourself, I can do this. I can quiet my mind. I can get the world, I don't have to watch television all throughout the day, because once we hear something, we've gotten the majority of it. And so to continually watch, we're just keeping our mind occupied. We're keeping the chaos going. We're keeping the uncertainty going. So sometimes also it's just moving away, finding a quiet place, finding a place where you can just sit still for a moment and just relax. And even if it's
We can't hear you, Dr. Hunter.
to be present and focus, go within, just going within what's important to me, and allow yourself to just hear the answer. And that's just simply how you quieten your mind, finding that place where you can be alone with yourself.
Like everybody's had a lot of great insight. And so some of the things I was thinking about was, don't automatically believe what your thought is. And so, I heard from Tamra, she's like, holy smokes, I'm moving to Atlanta. Well, actually, Tamra's like, I took a shower today, and can everybody smell? She was thinking, what are other people thinking about me right now? And so sometimes we have thoughts that are not always accurate, and I think that's kind of what we're all talking about today. Is that oftentimes we have this thought that may be partially accurate, but maybe a little bit off, and so don't always believe what you think. And so it's our job to go back and evaluate that thought and come up with something that's a little bit more accurate, a little bit more true, or maybe something that's more beneficial. So maybe there's a little bit more truth to it, but it's not really helpful to me. It's not really doing anything for me. It kind of leads to some of those negative places. And so I think it's kind of shifting it, thinking about, well, what can I do? What are some things we can do? Dr. Hunter, made a great idea of we can do mindfulness, we can do some guided imagery, some diaphoretic breathing, some progressive muscle tension and relaxing. There's a lot of things that we can do, even for 5 or 10 minutes, just kind of give ourselves a break. So throughout the day, if we're working from home, you can do some progressive muscle tension relaxing, or laying on the floor and just focusing on your breathing for 5 minutes. What is it like to breathe? Or I've heard a lot of people talk about that since their life has changed a little bit, they took a walk and they used their 5 senses. They, what I see and smell and taste and touch and feel, and the whole neighborhood changed. This is a great time too, because it's spring, and so you can go outside and you can you can smell spring. You can smell like the smell of spring, like the
Flowers are blooming.
flowers are blooming, and
I'm like, I didn't even know my neighborhood was this nice. I'm like, oh my God, there's a house right there.
there's a house, yes, and so just like smelling things, touching the grass, just being there in the present, in the moment, and sometimes that's helpful in itself. You know, sometimes people come back from that walk and they go, I'm not sure what it is, but I feel better. And so sometimes, you know, like this is a technique too. You know, so like I find sometimes people are like, you know, before they do the activity, they're like, I really don't feel like doing that. And then they go out, you know, so between a 1 and 10, 10 is really great and 1 not so great. And so before they go out, they go, you know, I really don't feel like doing that. It's kind of like a 1, maybe a 0. And so then I go out and do it, you know, like for this walk or whatever it might be. And I come back and I'm like, you know, that was maybe a 5 or a 6. Like I enjoyed that more than I thought I did. And this isn't something that's just going to start overnight, but I think over the next couple of days that you do this, you reevaluate it after you did the activity, you're going to start to feel better. You're going to start to go, hey, that was actually kind of cool. Like I like that. And so I think there's a lot of different exercises like this. You can find them on the web. And, you know, Louisa talked about it, that maybe we can provide some of these resources to people, but some things to help us kind of look at things in a different way.
You know, also I was gonna say like reading too, because I have like a list of, like Louisa has books back there. I'm just like, oh, give them to me. But I have a list of books that I want to read. And so I've been saying, oh, I'm too busy. I'm working. I have to do emails. I have to do this. Now I'm like, ooh, now I can read this book. And then I go through that book and I'm like, ooh, now I can read this book. I'm like, ooh, I'm enjoying this time. But I know some people aren't like, yeah, that some people are like,
there's
okay,
things you can do.
Yeah, I can read my book, but like financially, can we talk about finances? Because right now, some people are getting laid off. Some people, you know, how do you adjust to not like receiving the income that you have? And I know there's tons of resources out there. Sometimes people don't know about it, but like mentally, how do you adjust from making money all the time to like possibly, you know, there may be people in here that have lost their jobs.
So,
well, that's a really nice segue into my next point. And that is, you know, is this fact or opinion? And so sometimes it's taking a look at the bigger picture. And so, yeah, you're right. Like there's a lot of different changes that might be happening in a person's life. Maybe it's a loss of job. Maybe, you know, I started talking at the beginning about different losses that people might have. You know, like that's a real specific one, like a loss of job or loss of income, loss of other things. But there's a lot of different losses that people are going through right now. You know, I mentioned at the beginning, like, you know, maybe it's a friend of mine was getting married a couple of weeks ago, actually, and he had to reschedule that to June. And so like there's weddings and bar mitzvahs and lots of different things that are changing in a person's life. And so I think to answer your question, Tamara, it's what's the bigger picture? And so I think we need to look at the bigger picture of this, not to take away things that are happening in a person's life, but to say like, what is the bigger picture? What's happening? Is this fact or is this opinion? And then I think you start coming up with a strategic plan, like how am I going to address the situation? So how am I going to do some problem solving, like identify the problem, define it, and do some brainstorming. A couple other ideas is I always like this. What would you think if I'm calmer? You know, so like sometimes we start to have all this emotion. A lot of people on today's event talked about like a lot of things that are happening in their life that was creating a lot of emotion. And so how would I think about this if I was in a calmer state? How would I respond to this if I was in a calmer state? What would that look like? My last thing, which I really like, which I like to leave you guys with, is does the thought inspire me or does it have the opposite effect? And so do I want my thought to inspire me? A lot of people tonight were talking about inspiration, right? And so do I want this thought that I'm having, that I'm running through, that I'm thinking about, do I want it to inspire me? Do I want to use this as an opportunity for my own growth? or do I want to have it give me the opposite effect? And I think the theme for tonight is I want to have inspiration. I want to do things in a different way as a response to this experience. So let's not look at this as a negative way, but let's see how this experience can inspire us, inspire other people to doing things differently, to do things a way that maybe we're connecting with people differently, maybe we're working differently, maybe we're thinking differently. And that's what I'd like to leave you with is inspiration.
Oh, yeah. So I was saying before they announced the restrictions with COVID, we all had flights planned. We knew what we were going to wear to work the next day. We knew what we were going to feed the kids, or if we didn't, we were worried about something. And then it came and you're restricted to the house. So I think the biggest thing, it's really important for you to live in that day and that moment, because you don't know what's going to happen next. And if you overly stress about something that's may very well not even happen, you can't really come up with a solution for it. And I was also going to add another way to kind of take your mind off of it. Everyone can't grab a book and just read because they have little kids, and you're teaching your kids and you have other things going on. Don't be afraid.
Them kids under somewhere, they need to go. You got to read a book. No, I'm joking.
Right, you know, Zai. But so my thing is, this is something you can do, and I did it, and I don't like to because my rhythm's not the best. My son's doing TikTok, and he's on Fortnite, and let me tell you something. Any of y'all want some of me in Fortnite, come get it, because he done taught me how to play, and I think I'm good. I done got me some V-Bucks. I understand what it is. You have to go outside, and I'm a reader. I'm a planner, so when this first happened, I made a whole bunch of plans. When I come out of COVID, I'm coming out swinging. But in the meantime, I learned how to play Fortnite. I did TikTok with my kids. I realized I got a little bit of rhythm. I could probably take Britney Spears.
Shake a little bit.
Just a little. I don't shake much. Just a little. I'll shake. And I also learned that we take so much for granted, and we plan so far ahead, and we have no idea what the Creator has in store the next 10 minutes. And it's okay to be like, you know what? In this moment, right now, I'm going to play Fortnite, and that's okay. And I'll finish my emails later on.
We have to adjust to the new normal. And so the new normal is, like Dr. Young said, you really do have to appreciate the 5 senses. So the new work-life balance and the new Corona COVID life balance means if you're in your house swiping, scrolling, videoing, looking on this device here, right? And then you take a walk outside and you're walking down the street like this, guess what? That's not balance. You have to turn your phone off sometimes, even during this time, or at least put it on silent so that you can be in this present moment. And this calls for a new time of reacting differently and changing the pace of things. Another thing that I just wanted to note is Dr. Young talked about negative automatic thoughts and sort of what happens when those thoughts pop in your head. So I'm just going to be blunt, and I love analogies, right? Imagine if you had to hold a burp or a fart in all day long. That would really suck, right? It would, So if you hold your thoughts in all day long, because now you don't have the people that you would normally see to just fly off the random stuff. You're not passing somebody in the kitchen at work. You're not seeing your buddy at the coffee shop, and you've just been holding your thoughts in all day. That's a lot of the reasons why you have this, unsteadiness about you and all this like pent up energy, is because a thought in itself is energy. And so now is a better time than ever to learn to journal. Like find some paper, find some, old notebooks and just start writing in them. Or if you don't want to pick up a pen, most of the phones that we have a little microphone button. So you can start your own Google Doc or a notepad, push that microphone on, and all day long, you can talk into this bad boy, and that will be 100 times better than letting those thoughts run on autopilot in your head. And then who knows, you just might write the most best-selling novel during quarantine. A little known fact is that the timeless book, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, was written in 48 hours by one man in a single weekend. And so,
that explains so much.
Yeah, like hundreds of years later, we're still reading that book, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. So, that explains so much, though.
I have all these little known facts being a professor. So, I just, have to get them out some way, shape, or form. Yeah, Tamra just asked the question, how important is it to kind of just put yourself out there and swallow your pride? Well, thank all of you for being on the call, because this call in itself is a big dose of swallowing your pride. You know, sometimes these are conversations we only have with ourselves. And as therapists, sometimes they're conversations we only have with our folks in our offices. I think you have to give yourself a challenge. My answer to that would be that you have to challenge yourself. If any of you follow me on Instagram, I don't have a lot of followers, but you know, what's interesting about that is I gave a challenge to myself because I do have a lot of students. And so lots of people follow me on other avenues, like in my intranet from the university. So I've got, you know, tens of thousands of students over a 15-year professor career. And so I gave a lecture to my students about the collateral damage of not managing your time properly. And if any of you have seen the movie Collateral Beauty, you know that life is the sum total of love, death, and time, right? All things are going to come to an end. This call will end. This day will end. If you go to the bathroom, the bowel movement will end. Everything's going to end at some point, you know? So that's the brass tacks of it. So you don't have to worry about when something's going to end. We're born to die, and everything has an ending. There's an ending and there's a beginning. And in terms of the ending and the beginning, we don't want to think about this as the beginning of the end. This new life that we're living because of this pandemic is the end of the beginning, right? And so now we're really ready to have our real self because we're starting over. Everybody's together. And, you know, when you think about time, we don't control time. Time is the constant. We either use it, abuse it, waste it, or not make the most of it. And so the one thing that we do control is how much love we insert into the equation. And that all begins with loving yourself, because one of the things we can't control is the love we get from others, but we can control the love we give ourselves. And to divert back to the regular question, the question was, how do we swallow our pride and, you know, sort of challenge ourselves? I'm keeping track of time by every day. I put a new 3x5 card up and it says what the date is, and it's what my challenge was. Everything from the harmonica to the accordion to Kardashian lookalike photos to this weekend, I might be Lady Gaga, or I might be a mermaid on Monday. I don't know, but I'm trying to inspire myself, inspire my students, keep track of time, and just do little things that brighten my day. And I'm not doing it for the gram. I'm doing it for myself. It's not for validation. See, when you use this time to recognize that, yes, we're all connected through the smart world, when you really do this the right way, when you post something, who cares if no one liked it, right? Because even if you're the ripest, juiciest, most prize-winning peach on the tree, or you're like Wilbur and Charlotte's Web, the amen pig at the county fair, somebody's not gonna like bacon and somebody's not gonna like peaches. There's always gonna be a hater. Rise above the haters, and you posting your stuff on the internet or on Facebook or in any form of social media, this is just your form of self-expression that you are so kind enough to let us see. It doesn't matter. It's not for the likes. You do it for your own like. And when that is the level that you get to, you have used this time wisely. So that would be my soapbox. You know, I think Dr. Hunter's been waiting to talk, so I digress.
No, I think that's absolutely great.
I
think that's absolutely great what you just said.
I don't know if it, you know, the Instagram was going to remove the likes. I don't know if has happened in the US, but I think that I see a bright future for that. Just because Instagram is moving their likes, then I think every photo is going to be, which is insane for me. You know, every photo is worth the same. But I just going to think, I think that's going to change how we view Instagram. Like, it doesn't matter if Kylie Jenner or whoever posts a photo, it's a photo. You know, if they put a flower and I put a flower, just because she gets more likes, people think it's a more pretty flower, which is insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think all of that, getting rid of the ego, is vulnerability. And I think that's the bravest thing anyone can ever do. And I think we have really mixed up. You know, most of us, we've been taught completely different based on those likes. Our egos are too big or either too small. But the truth is, the moment you can love yourself to be yourself, no matter who's watching on social media, at home, in the mirror, you know, no matter what, once you cross over into that territory, I think your thought process changes, your financial situation changes, the friends you select changes, the person you want to marry changes, because the moment that you can look at yourself and you say, you know what, I'm not perfect, but I like myself. Everything in your life changes, and you begin to attract people who like themselves. That gets rid of those haters that Louisa was talking about. That gets rid of caring if someone likes you or not. Self-love will align you with other people who love themselves, and you're able to grow in such a capacity and become someone that you never knew that you could become. And that's what life's about, constantly evolving into a better version of yourself.
Y'all, she's talking about me. Can't you tell?
Us,
Yeah.
friend, us.
Oh my God, I didn't know this was going to be about me.
Absolutely. And to bring in the academic merit behind that, Shatonna, when you see the picture behind your wall, one of the things that I learned in art history is that, you know, the fundamentals of like Museum 101, whether it's the Louvre or whether it's the Pompidou or whether it's just your local art gallery or pictures that your kids drew, hear me loud and clear, whether it's just a photo on Instagram. You do not have to like something to appreciate it. And appreciation is where it begins.
If
So,
you can
yeah.
appreciate something, your life, so many things will pour into your life. The ability to just look outside and like, oh my God, look at that grass. Like something grew that. Like, oh, you know, I can digest, I can breathe, my fingers move. The ability to have gratitude is the gateway into self-love.
Yeah, absolutely. And all these things are so relative. And, you know, this week we just wanted to come to you, you know, for about an hour to kind of talk to you a little bit about these things: balance in life, taking control, knowing thyself, and then eventually understanding what's next. And it's our goal, you know, we'd like to come back with you next week. And if you've liked something you heard here, share it with your friends. We're going to try to clean this video up a little bit and then post it out so that people can learn something from it, because there were just so many valuable nuggets of information. Next week, it's our hope that we are going to speak to you about loss and grief and complicated grief and really what those stages look like. And so I know 7 days is a long time to wait. So if you can understand that there are stages of grief, and those stages begin with shock, numbness, denial, emotional outburst, fear, disorganization, isolation, depression, guilt, and that whole segue into what's next. Understand that when you start to do something new and you start to think about it a little bit differently, each person progresses those stages a little bit differently. And so we're going to come to you next week and kind of iron that out and really walk you through what those stages look like so that you can kind of be better prepared and understand that each person experiences it in different ways. So for example, some people might laugh, some people might cry, because when you get to that emotional outburst, that's the unpredictable. You know, death has a very different response for every person, and grief, we're all grieving things that are different, you know, dreams that are lost and things like that. So keep your questions coming. You know, coming soon, we'll have some social media places where you can post your questions. And I think, Tamra, did you want to add something?
Yeah, because people can take their phone off of audio if they want to ask a question, as long as your kids aren't screaming in the background. If somebody has any questions or you guys have any suggestions for us, because we're going to be doing this every week. This is new. And so we are open to that. We're not perfect. Like Shatonna said, I'm not perfect, even though I think that I am. She reminds me that
We're not perfect. Like, pour to each other. Me and Tamra, like, that's a whole nother, we're going to talk about friendship eventually, child. But
there's a
that's
question.
a whole nother rodeo.
What do you do if you suffer? That was my main, this is why I wanted to do this. Like, what if you already suffer from anxiety and depression? What do you do? Dr. Hunter, can you speak about that? Because Dr. Hunter, we reconnected on Facebook, and it was like, when I saw her, I'm like, oh, she find me. And I'm so excited. So when I made a post, and I was just like, what about the people that already suffer from, you know, anxiety and depression? Like, and Dr. Hunter was one of the first ones to respond. I'm like, oh, I have to have you.
Well, let me just share this. Thank you, Tamra, and I'm so proud of you. Let me just share this. Earlier you mentioned when you saw Louisa books and you're like, oh, give them to me. I could just read all day. Well, people who are introverted, this is the norm. This is a great time for us because we can find things to do and we can work on projects. However, people who are extroverted, this is a very challenging time. There are lots of anxiety and depression.
He's someone he's very extroverted, and I was worried about him.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's going on too is you all need the social interaction. when you don't get it, it causes a stress. You need to touch people. You need to feel people. You need to go to the mall. You need to go shopping. You need to go to the restaurants. You need to go to the bars. And so because of this isolation, people who are extroverted, this is a very challenging time. And I think one of the questions was, how do I I'm working, and how do I, just stare at these four walls? What can I do? One of the things that a person who's extroverted can do if you're working from home that will help ease the anxiety, turn your television on, the radio on, and do your work all at the same time. Because what it does, it simulates that people are around you. You get your energy from people. So therefore, when you're home, those games that are on social media, that you can play with other people, do extroverted. You have to be really creative at this time. Even though you can't connect with other people, but do it. Find ways on social media to do it. Get out, go for a walk, exercise, get your adrenaline going, but you have to keep yourself feeling like you are surrounded by those who love you. And so if you're in your room and you're working, make sure you have lots of pictures of loved ones, pictures of friends, because it feels like they're with you. So you really, really need to find those things that keep you going and also make you laugh. This needs to be a fun time for extroverts because you love to have fun. You love people. So call a friend, call a neighbor, and have fun. And at the end of the day, you're going to make it through this too. We're all going to make it through this.
Yeah, and one of the comments was she loves to she loves to get away and get shopping and socialize. Instagram has all kind of ads.
One of the things that Dr. Hunter just talked about was, turning on the TV. Sometimes for those of us who are extroverts, turning on some of those things can be distractions. But when you can use, well, yeah, for people who are extroverts, right? So if you turn on the TV and then you're watching a comedy show, you're watching game shows, then
does it remind you that you're not there?
Well, you might get distracted, and that's good for some of us, but some of us need that. But I'm saying for those extroverts who need to work and want to be hyper-focused, or people who may be listening to the call and saying, oh my gosh, I still need people's energy to get myself going. You might be able to turn on like an AM talk radio or Google, talk shows of things you're not really interested in, because then they're just going to hear that in the background. And that's like the people sitting at the coffee shop in your old world that, you just knew were there. And so you felt comforted, you weren't alone, but you really could care less about what they're saying. So that's like, a model experience.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Kazim.
All the time too. What if Dr. Young, what do you
Before we go to Dr. Young, Kazim had something he wanted to say.
I would say because obviously when this happened, as Tamra said, I am very extroverted.
I was really worried about him. Like, seriously, I'm like, if it's not going to be COVID, it's going to be because he had to be inside.
My monthly is, being in LA for 2 weeks, 1 week in Atlanta and 1 week in New York. That's what I do every month. So for me, I live on an airplane. So just coming here, it's been, crazy. But I think what I remind myself is that we're all going through this together, because I remind that myself a lot, because if this has happened me or whatever maybe my area, then I would be like, I would get that anxiety of missing out, fear of missing out. Then I'll be like, oh, I have to be there, oh, what's happening? But as soon as I get like crazy, then I'm like, but okay, this is actually happening in Greece, not like in all kinds of countries. So I just try to do that. Then I listen to jazz, which helps me out a lot. I do have my TV on all the time. It's on right now, even when I sleep. And then I also like to watch reactions videos. People are reacting to stuff. I don't know, it's nice to just see people reacting to like a new video. They're just laughing, and I'm just like watching. I'm like, it's nice. I'm just trying to make myself distracted. But then also I have a job where I thankfully can still interact with students, and it's very important for me to stay in touch with them because they give me the energy. They call me, they're frustrated, and I feel like I have to be a role model for them. So I'm like, I forget myself. It's about them. This is
do that part. Let's talk about how we FaceTime
Yes,
each other.
we are not going to talk about the purge, but I'll tell you what you can do.
through this. We're gonna be happy. This is not a purge.
You're okay.
You can do your own.
Everything's fine.
I'll tell you a true story. I once lived with a monk, and he had a technique that he wanted us to do. I had one condition: we had to remove all forms of media. I will say it was a really powerful time because I learned a lot. I know that the impetus for this call was to get us together and talking about it, but this is only the beginning, because as you can see, everything we've talked about tonight, it didn't just start with the pandemic. It started a long time ago, and it got ignored because we didn't have the time to face it and to deal with it. And so as we continue to bring you words of wisdom, you know, we just want you to know that there are people that care, there's forums to listen, and we're going to try to balance it out with words of wisdom, with some creativity stuff, and ultimately to create little how-to guides and how to get through this, because together we will.
We all want to say that living with a monk is on our bucket list.
I've done a lot of stuff.
It's on my bucket list. Make it happen, Louisa.
Yeah, his name was Justin. Justin, if you're watching or listening, thank you. You forever humbled me.
I feel like that's not the right kind of name for a monk.
Justin,
You
no
need to tell us his monk
Well,
name.
this was the name that he had re-entered the world in.
Got it.
We have to have another Zoom for this.
And let me tell you, if you're sitting at home right now feeling comfortable and this isn't affecting you, good for you. I applaud you. But also that raises a big question to me, because to anyone who understands transformation and growth, think about a seed that you plant in the grounds, like a tulip or any seed that you plant, a flower, a vegetable, whatever you're growing. When you understand growth, you understand that a seed sprouting through the earth has to undergo complete destruction before it can bloom and bear fruit. So if you're feeling uncomfortable right now, I applaud you, because that means you know that change is coming, and that means you're getting ready to grow. And so that's your inspiration. And one of the things I asked Dr. Hunter to prepare, since she is a Christian clinical counselor, is that I just ask if she could maybe close us out with a brief moment of prayer. And for those of you who succumb to a different religion or a different belief, maybe you could just meditate with us and just ponder on the thoughts that are in your own heart. And we just thank you so much for tuning into Words of Wisdom. And I'm going to close it out and turn it over to Dr. Hunter for a prayer, and just thank everyone who participated in this groundbreaking effort tonight. We're here, we're with you, and our words of wisdom go out to you. Thank you so much for joining. Dr. Hunter, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we ask you to help our world during this time of uncertainty. We all need your love and guidance. Guide our leaders. Continue to protect those on the front line. Comfort those who have lost loved ones. Remind us of your words in John 3:16. For God so loved the world. Give us peace and understanding, and bless this platform to help others. For this, we are grateful. Amen.
I was brought up in the house of owls and angels, where I learned about things wild and free. I've been picking up sticks of truth and danger, learning all about this life that's been given to me.